Hi, welcome to the next episode of Apparently Sews. Today we're going to talk about sewing vinyl. And I think there's a lot of videos online about sewing vinyl, but there's a lot of tips and tricks. So I'm going to try and show you as much as I know as fast as I can so that you can get the most out of this video. I just recently finished 2 costumes that have a lot of vinyl work in them, so I learned a lot from that and I wanted to share it with you. So today we're going to learn kind of the best way to use vinyl and all the different tools that can help you do that. First, we're going to talk about needles, and just when you're sewing with vinyl or leather, you need a different kind of needle than you would sew with fabrics, and that's because with fabrics, when your needle is made to go to kind of push the fibers apart, and in leather and vinyl, you are actually piercing the fabrics. You need a more wedge-like needle, and they look like this usually. There you go. I usually say leather, but really it's a vinyl needle too. It's always amazing to me how a needle can make a huge difference when you're sewing with different materials. So you are going to want that needle. Because vinyl is so unforgiving, when you make a mistake, it's not like you can iron it away and the holes disappear. So if you see, I kind of sewed and took out the seams for the vinyl here, and you can see the holes are really obvious. So it's better to plan and not make mistakes, because once you've sewn through the vinyl, there's no going back at that point. So instead of pins, since pins make holes and you'll see them, you can use these little guys. And they are basically wonder clips, or they're all kinds of different names. They come in, mine's a bunch of beautiful, pretty colors. And you use those like pins to pin your different pieces together. I wouldn't leave them in overnight or for a long period of time, because the vinyl will pick up kind of like the teeth edges in there, and it won't really come out. So you'll have kind of this weird stamp in your vinyl. But they are good for holding it together while you're sewing. So there are a couple of feet options for you if you want to sew vinyl. There is something called a Teflon foot. It's usually white, and it has this smooth bottom. It makes it really easy to glide along the vinyl. There's also something called a roller foot, which on the bottom has this little roller on it, and both of those are great for working with vinyl. Kind of spins around. Your sewing machine may also come with this weird thing, and I remember when I got it I had no idea what it is, but it's kind of like a sticker. It looks like this, and then it has a peel off backing on one side. This is actually something that you can stick on the bottom of your regular foot, and it has a slick side so that it glides along vinyl. So it's actually for sewing vinyl. If you don't have either one of those foot, there's actually some cool tricks too. You can use tissue paper, or this is patternese, but you can use either one of those to put on top of your fabric, and your foot will glide right along, and then afterwards you just tear it off. Or you can use a lubricant where you just kind of put it along your seam line or where you're sewing, and it will just glide over it. I also use sewing machine oil to do that instead of buying lubricant, but I know there are some online sites that sell it. mjtrends.com sells lubricant, and they have some great tutorials online too about how to use some vinyl fabrics. There are 2 basic kinds of vinyl. There's stretch and non-stretch, and both of those come in different thicknesses. This is non-stretch vinyl. It's a nice mat on one side, and you can kind of see some weavings on the back side. There's also stretch vinyl, where you can tell because it stretches. This one's only a 2-way, but only stretches this way, not this way. There's also patent stretch vinyl, where it has like this shiny sheen to it, and it still stretches. This one's also a 2-way stretch. And then there's really cool metallic colors like gold and silver. This is also a two-way stretch. So there's one thing I wanted to tell you about stretch vinyl, because a lot of people will make jumpsuits or boot covers or things like that that are out of vinyl that are very form-fitting. And different stretch vinyls will hold the elasticity more than others, and there is a way to test that, and that is if you take a piece of the vinyl and you pull it, and if it comes back together and there's not an obvious pull mark, then you know that it's pretty decent quality. If you kind of see that your fingers have left an indentation in there even after you've taken it away, then you know that that's something that's not going to hold its elasticity very well, and that will result in it bagging over time after you've worn it a few times. So you definitely want to test that before you buy a vinyl that you're going to be wearing, if it's going to be very form-fitting, so that it looks good over wears.
Okay, and you can see I already have the Teflon foot on there, but when you're sewing two pieces together, you can sew over the wrong side pretty easily. But I am using the leather needle and just sewing my seam line here straight down on just some regular pieces of that matte vinyl. And so you can just see the seam allowance. Now you should never iron on vinyl, it will melt it, but you can lightly press it if you have something to put over it and you don't leave the iron on it, you just press it slightly up and down. This is something that you're going to want to test on a swatch to make sure that it doesn't stick or melt at all. But as you can see, it works okay, but it is something you're going to have to test a lot to make sure that it doesn't do any damage. Okay, we're back at the sewing machine, and you can see that I am using my little clips, and I have my Teflon foot still. What I'm doing now is I'm going to top stitch along that seam, which in vinyl looks really nice if you can get straight seams on there, so it is important that you use the right foot. And you can see it's just gliding right down. It's not fighting me or it's not bunching up. It's nice and straight all the way down there. So now you can see that it's a very flat stitch on both sides. So what I'm going to do now is show you on a different vinyl, on a thinner vinyl. So on this gold vinyl, we have the same thing. We're going to be top stitching, but I have the regular foot on there just so you can see what a difference it makes. If you can see, the fabric is really pulling and bunching. It's fighting me the whole way. I have to try and pull it to sew down on top of it. And what that results in is a very, very ugly top stitch. I'll show you here in just a minute. You can see, look how terrible that is. It's all bunched up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch my foot back to the Teflon foot, and I'm going to stitch down the same piece of vinyl, and you can see it's not fighting me. It's nice and straight and flat. And you can see the difference between those two seams. So nice and flat, the other one's terrible. Really quickly, I just want to show you the trick where you put paper on top of the fabric. I just wanted you to be able to tell how easily it glides over it, just like when you're using the Teflon foot, but I do have my normal foot on there. So basically just sew straight down, and when you're done, you just go ahead and tear that piece off. You might have a few little pieces that you'll have to pick out depending on if you're using tissue paper or patternies, but you can see we still have that straight stitch.
Alright, well, hopefully that was helpful to you in some way. Right now I'm making a obi for one of my cosplays from Hozuki no Utetsu, and I'm making little snake obis, so should be fun. So if you're working on something with vinyl, maybe you could share it in the comments. If you have any other tips or tricks that we didn't talk about, go ahead and share them in the comments. Subscribe if you like this video and you'd like to see more. I'm also on Facebook as Poison Sugar Cosplay, if you want to check out my current projects. And thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.